everyone.
Here we are.
Here we are again. What a bad morning. Welcome
you're
over.
so loud.
Really?
Yeah, boy, you're blowing me away.
Huh.
That's funny.
Well, welcome to Over 50, starting over, everyone. I'm Barry Edwards.
I'm Merle Garrison. We're
And
starting over.
Yes, we have got no choice. We did not get any of that recording.
Wow.
So we're going to have a very short show today. Pretty short, I'm sorry to say. No after show for sure. We just had some technical problems, and we both have some responsibilities to take care of today. So diving right in, I was telling you about the old Browns game that they barely pulled it out, and you said, well, what's your assessment of them? And I said that they're a team still on the rise, whereas the Kansas City Chiefs are in their prime. They've been doing this for several years now. So I expect big things, and we don't even know what the ceiling is for the Browns yet. They got all the pieces in place.
Yeah. I got to tell you, your voice. You got to pull the mic away from your face a little bit, I think, because it was way, way, way loud. How am I coming through?
You sound normal.
Okay. Yeah.
And on my phones, I sound normal.
Huh. That's interesting. But you sound a lot louder than you did. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Your Browns are looking like they have potential. We've talked about this before.
Yeah.
And hey, let's see what happens here. This is this is the beginning of the season. Anything could happen. You never know. We can't start buying Super Bowl tickets yet.
No.
But wouldn't that be great if they did make it? How many times have you said that?
Well, sure. I feel pretty strongly they're going to see the Chiefs again in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So, and I think that after 17 games, you do know that they added a game to our season.
Yeah. That's interesting. Why? I mean, they've been slowly adding games to the season for many years. Yeah, money.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, so they struck the deal with the players' union to take one off the preseason. So now we'll only have 3 rather than 4, which I think is a good idea. And then put one into the regular season, which is just more money for the NFL. And I like it. I mean, an NFL season is so short. It's mid-season before you even get to know what the teams are really like.
Well, and at the same time, a 17-game season can be brutal on your body.
Oh yeah.
So that's another thing to look out for is injuries and things like that, and such an injury-prone sport for sure. I mean, we're seeing, and these players are getting stronger and faster.
Yeah.
And of course, technology is getting better and better, but I don't think it's keeping up.
No.
It is. It's something. I think about this all the time. As I remember watching cartoons when I was a kid, and the Jetsons had football, and George Jetson was into it, and the football players were all robots, and they would. It was.
That's
funny.
what it's going to be. It's
probably going to be,
and it's going to be like, can you believe people used to do this back in the day, like Roman gladiators
run into each other. How stupid were they?
Very true. Very true.
Roman gladiators. I love it.
It's not very different. Not very different.
It isn't. I mean, at least, few people get killed.
Yeah.
Let's just put it that way.
So I shared with you the story, a terrifying story, that during that game, beginning of the third quarter, I realized that Charlie found a way out through a rotted board in the back of the garage, and it was really a panicky situation. So he was out and gone. I heard him in the neighbor's yard. By the time I ran over there, they said he went that way, which was very close to Cedar Road, which is a 4-lane road of heavy traffic. So this was terrifying. So I run back home. I get my bike. I'm riding down the street, calling them and everything. Got some neighbors involved. They were on the lookout and stuff. And then after several minutes of no success, I called Lisa and said, hey, can you drive down the other side of Cedar in case he actually crossed the street or something? And she came by and did that. And, I got her all panicked. And I was just focused. 100% of my attention was on this. I was terrified. And starting to come to the realization that I may never see Charlie again. And God only knows what his fate would be. Lisa comes back over to me while I'm on my bike on the side street. She's like, no sign of them. Don't know. She's very upset. She starts crying, and I said, I can't sit here and talk about this. I'm sorry, but seconds are precious right now. I've got to keep looking for them. And well, apparently she's still mad at me about that I was very dismissive. And I get that. And I apologized several times via text and email. And apparently we're going to talk this afternoon. Oh, but the end of the story is that, so when I gave up on riding up and down the street, I just came to the realization that at this point, the best thing I could do is post something on Nextdoor with this picture and call out to the neighbors for help. That's really the best application that Nextdoor app is for, and
yeah.
While I'm doing that, I come in the house here, I come up and get on my computer. Charlie comes walking around the corner. He found his way back in through the way he got out and went back into the house and upstairs into the bedroom, his safe place. So I can't even tell you what that feeling was like. Oh, the feelings I was flooded with when I saw it.
I can't even imagine.
First of all, I couldn't believe it. Like, is this a dream? What? But then, I called Lisa to apologize and tell her that Charlie's here and all that. And she just, wasn't happy with me at all. And Merle, you just said, you got to understand that how different we are. And, what did you say?
I got something else to add to this because as you were telling the story, you said something that made me think of my own life and my own marriage and how we sometimes run into these kinds of conflicts. And it's really just because we think differently, but I know one thing is that if I'm in a crisis situation, the way that I communicate with Anne Marie is going to be crucial to how she actually responds to the crisis. So, if I'm in panic mode and I'm putting that kind of energy out, this is not going to be good for Anne Marie because of her personality type.
Lisa's the same, and you're right.
I think they're similar in personality types. Anne Marie,
they pick up on your energy.
And she's very detailed, and things need to be in order. And if they're out of order, then there's almost an anxiety that starts to happen right there. So, the best thing that I found to do with Anne Marie when I'm in a panic mode is to remain calm as I'm talking to her and keep my voice and the pitch of my voice down here. And speak more slowly and calmly and confidently. But and she'll start to mirror that. That's a really important part of her personality that I found. I've been doing this whole DISC assessment thing of personality types and everything. And we talked about this before, that LinkedIn plugin. And I plugged in Anne Marie to that. And I found out that, about her personality type. I can't remember what that is on her, but, if you're going to do something new where there's going to be change, I've got to be very detailed and let her know, well, here's what the plan is. Here's what the dates are. So-and-so is going to be doing. And if I don't do that, or if there's no way for her to get that, there's uncertainty there. Boy, she is not good at that.
This is good advice for me. You are correct. Talk about having to juggle a lot of responsibility, though, when I'm literally feeling every second is very important. I'm waiting to hear a car skidding to
I know it.
Yeah, but you're right. I know you're right.
Here's something else to think about that I've thought about is that because I start to think, well, gosh, I'm panicked. What about me? What is there concessions for me? But here's what I found out is that if I just be me and I'm all in a panic, and I do that, right? And then I get her in a panic. And then when we're both in a panic, we tend to be like, we might clash. You know what I mean? Like,
true. Like this happens with Lisa and I. It does.
And then what happens is that instead of focusing the energy on solving the problem, we have an interpersonal conflict that's
Yes.
bigger than the problem, or
Yeah.
at least it's now in front of the problem. So we can't get to the problem, which
Yeah.
causes much more stress, much more anxiety. And the whole, what about me? Well, I just made it 10 times worse for me by the way that I acted. And so
I've recognized this. You're painting a perfect picture though.
And so what I've found is that the best way to deal with these types of situations is learn how to deal with myself first. And it comes back to this, Barry, is that I can't can't control Anne Marie. I should never try to control her.
That won't work out well.
No, it doesn't. And really, the only person I should be focused on controlling is me, because that's really the only person I can control. And I have a hard enough time with that.
Man, that's good advice. And I mean, that's really good advice because you hit it spot on. These are the problems that I encounter with Lisa, just exactly the way you laid it out.
Well, and I think that men and women in relationships are all experiencing these same kinds of things right now, right? I mean, It doesn't matter what your personality type is, because men and women are basically different. And and we've talked about this before, where a marriage counselor that I heard one time on the radio said something, I thought it was perfect in understanding the difference. But she said that men are more, their brains are more like a toolbox where everything's in compartments, or like a tackle box where you put the lures over here and you put the weights over here.
Sure.
And we as men can easily get into these compartments and solve, okay, Charlie's missing, I'm a one-track mind, I just have to solve the problem.
Yeah.
But women's minds are like spaghetti, where you look at a plate of spaghetti and every noodle is touching every other noodle. And so for them, they don't compartmentalize. Everything comes together because everything's related to each other. And here's what I come to the realization of is neither way is the perfect way, but if you combine both ways of thinking, you typically will end up at a good destination.
I totally agree with that. Boy, you really gave some really good advice for me, and hopefully a few other people can relate as well. Buddy, I'm going to move along because of I did want to mention though. So this brought up the issue of microchipping. And
yeah, that's right.
So, Charlie was literally 3 days away from his first vet appointment on Sunday. So we just had his vet appointment on Wednesday. And though I had a zillion questions, Lisa emailed me 6 questions to ask and all this. So I forgot to ask about the microchipping. So I looked it up on my own because it's not a GPS device. You can't track your dog with it, but though there are GPS stuff that you can get. But what it is an identifier. So it can easily scan. One thought I had is Charlie's so damn cute and young and little that somebody could find him and say, man, I love this dog. I'm keeping him.
Yeah,
if he's chipped, I get the police, I see him, I get the police involved. If he's chipped, there's no issue there. It would be me on the chip. So that's micro, and it's only about $35, and it's about the size of a grain of rice. So it's super easy. Definitely going to do it. And I got to get his tags too, which I'm embarrassed to say that I haven't done that yet.
Well, he's a puppy, and so he's not really getting out of the house and everything. So I can understand why you don't have the tags yet. But yeah, probably something you need to do pretty quickly here as he's getting a little bit more mobile. But I want to go back to the chip part and $35. I think it's a great investment. One of the things I see, because you mentioned the Nextdoor app. I always see where people have the description of their lost dog there, and then a lot of times they'll put in that the dog is chipped, and I think it's actually a pretty cool thing, because here you are, you're like, okay, if I see a dog like that, you can definitely identify him or her because of that chip. I mean, there's no way around it. It kind of makes it a lot more legitimate what you're doing as a person seeking a lost dog. Secondly, I wanted to ask, did you look at what it would cost for the GPS version? Because
I
how
hadn't.
cool would it have been if you could have just pulled up an app on your phone and, oh, there's Charlie over there. He's
How cool would that
actually
be?
still in the house.
Yeah. So, we talked about this too, is what kind of dog do you have? Do you have a runner or what? So when I discovered that he was gone, I had to immediately kind of self-assess that. Like, well, Charlie doesn't seem like a runner to me. He's an investigator. He likes to sniff new things. He's still a puppy. Everything's new to him. So he gets really, so I didn't think he'd go very far. But what I didn't know, and what I found out, is I surmised that he went back through the garage, how he got out. He went back through there probably pretty soon when he heard me calling for him. And he probably felt the anxiety in my voice as I'm calling for him, and went right up into the house, into the bedroom. So that tells me a lot about him, that he's safe. He's about being safe. And that's a good quality you want for your dog. Where was I going? Did I have a moral to that story?
Well, I had a comment on that because it tells me that.
Bless you.
That's not what it told me. It tells me how smart Charlie is.
Yeah.
And that he got out of his normal area, but figured out that, hey, he could just come back in.
I'm surprised he figured that out.
Yeah,
you would think a puppy,
a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah. So really cool. Just really, really glad I got him back, and I'm going to shore up some things there and hopefully get back on track with Lisa. That would be very nice.
Well, that's probably paramount in your life right now. So
it is. I don't feel good on a daily basis.
Well, you just have to have hat in hand on this whole thing and just be patient and humble. And, and personally, I find that the best way to shore up things is take responsibility. Maybe I shouldn't have been so panicky when I said this. I can understand. I'm sorry. And boy, that goes a long way, doesn't it?
It does. Even in my apologies via text and email, one time I explained myself that I was singularly focused. Seconds were very precious at that time to me, and then said I'm sorry. In the subsequent, because we have had to have some communication back and forth for some things, in subsequent things, I simply said, I'm really sorry, and I care about your feelings, and I want you to know that I hear you and I understand. In other words, don't sit there and dwell on excuses. They want to be heard. They want to know that they're heard.
And I think you hit the nail on the head, is that she needs to know that you care about her feelings. And that's very important. And it's important for all of us, right? I mean, that's I have that need too. So
we all do.
Gonna be great. Yeah, we need to be heard. We need to
understood.
And especially in crisis, we get so bent out of shape in these situations, and our hearts are so desperate. Hey, Barry, you know what? Especially these days, it just seems like our sensitivities are at such a frazzled location right now, that when things that happened, a couple of years ago might not be as big of a deal as they are right now, because we're all kind of edgy. We're on the edge, and so I think right now, and I'm not talking about you and Lisa, but I'm talking about the world in general. Man, we just need love to happen. Love and forgiveness needs to happen, right?
Segue,
those are the big deals. Go ahead.
Yeah, to segue, because this is a perfect illustration of what you're saying about the hypersensitivity of things that, in years gone by weren't such a big deal. Today, everything's under a microscope. So I was telling you before my system quit on me that your old high school in Hudson, Ohio, the mayor calls for school board resignations over, quote, X-rated writing prompts. It's a horrible headline. Writing prompts you're like, what? But this was in the New York Post. And so a parent, Monica Havens, told the school board at a school board meeting, told the school board members that she found out about inappropriate writing prompts from a friend. She says, this is horribly written. I asked my daughter if she had been reading a book with inappropriate stuff in it, and she said yes. And Havens here was formerly a public school teacher of 11 years. She said, I can't even wrap my brain around, as a teacher, I don't care if it's for college credit. These are minors. These topics are encouraged and read by if these topics are encouraged and read by adults, that is pedophilia, says the outrage mother. And just finally, our last quote, this is grooming and all of you need to be replaced, she told the school board. You have dedicated yourself to woke social justice. Now, let me explain what this was about. This college prep writing course is using a book called 642 Things to Write About. And amongst them, now I'm going by memory, there is a couple of items, suggestions that, well, you can't think of anything to write about. How about a sexual fantasy that you would not share with your mom? Another one was, how would you do the perfect murder? And I think they described one or two more. So there's the point, and then the mayor gets up and says, I am going to press charges of pedophilia on all of you if you don't resign. Now, what I'm bothered by with the sensationalism of this article is I haven't heard the other side of the story.
Right.
Haven't heard from the teachers of this curriculum or the school board members. So I got to tell you, when I first read it, I was incensed. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe this pedophilia, woke justice. And then I started thinking about it and I'm like, how is this woke social justice? I don't see that angle at all. And then I started thinking about, well, when I was in high school, around 17 years old, that one time they took us to a movie as a field trip to go see Romeo and Juliet, a modern day movie made of it. And there was a nude scene in there of Juliet, a very well endowed Juliet. And there's one guy in the back, it got really quiet. And, one guy in the back goes, keep on breathing. Because it was a rather passionate scene. And but everybody handled it well outside of that. And again, we're about 17. I remember another class, and I was in college prep courses, and I took college prep English courses and stuff, writing all of this. Another time I had a book that we were to read that I don't remember what it was called, but it was about this immigrant couple, following this immigrant couple that came to the United States in like the 30s or 40s or something, how rough it was for them just to get their factory jobs. And there was a lot of a side story about the wife who had to do sexual favors to the owner of a factory to keep her job. And it was easily rated R,
Right.
But it would never, ever have been an issue back then. We were being prepped to be adults and if this, of course, if these were college courses, if this happened in college after 18, nobody could say anything about it. I think this is the point, to your point a few minutes ago, that this is about the oversensitivity that we're all in right now. If the teachers of this curriculum using 642 things to write about, if they approached it, maybe they probably do, is saying, okay, here's this book, biggest thing with writers is writer's block, not knowing what to write about, the fear of a blank canvas, all of that. This is a great book with all these different things to write about to get you a jump start. A few of these things are very adult-like, and we are going to handle that in adult manners. Do not present anything to me that's inappropriate in high school. It's probably how but I don't know, because the other side of the story wasn't given.
See, that's a great point that you're making right there, is that the other side of the story wasn't given. And that, I think that's a problem in journalism today, because
yes,
we like to use air quotes when we say journalism, just because journalism seems to be a dead art these days. And, you got to be able to show both sides. I always like to bring up the Bible. There is a proverb that says, everything a man says seems right. until the other witness is cross-examined.
There you go.
So that's where we are. I have to say that it sounds like, remember we use it, sounds like we just don't have all of the information. What I do hear is that there's 600 and some different ideas, and we've heard 2 of them that sound pretty bad.
Yeah.
But we don't know what the other 640 are. So we don't have the context. I would say that I certainly, as a teacher, wouldn't want to encourage my kids to write anything that I had to read about their sexual fantasies.
That's a fact.
I don't want that.
No.
And I could see
if that was a regular thing that happened, then this is appropriate. Everything that they're saying is appropriate.
I agree. But we don't know that, so we can't really have a judgment. But to your point, if you're just going to trickle out that information alone out of context, it's easy. This kind of thing will go viral, and it will demonize the teachers and all of this kind of stuff. Let's face it. There's great teachers out there, and there's terrible teachers out there. We seem to hear a lot about the bad teachers lately, a lot more about the bad teachers than the good teachers. I'd like to hear some good stories for a change about teachers that are doing some good things for their kids and making things better in school. I'm getting off on a tangent here. No, you're not. There's a very important point that you've been making is that journalism and the, what do you call it? The court of public opinion. Yeah. Well, if this parent is proclaiming to be anti-woke in CRT, and as I am in schools, get that crap out. Let's get to the other side, because we can't just immediately call for the heads of these 5 people. If you're anti-woke and anti-cancel culture and all that, then don't destroy these lives without a proper investigation. Well, and the other thing too is that if a change needs to happen, why pull the nuclear option immediately? Let's talk about things.
The mayor went there.
Once again, though, we don't have the context because we don't know whether or not these things had happened beforehand and that there were times where there was an attempt to work these kind of things out. I don't know. I'm just saying this, that it seems like in our culture today, if you don't agree with my ideology, the nuclear option is the only option.
Isn't that right there? Yeah, I mean, it's there's no steps in between. It's from 1 to 10. Yeah,
there's no like, hey, let's talk about this. It's like go to guns. Like what? Like okay. I just think we need to be more mature as a society and stop all the yelling and insulting and everything. That's where we are right now. Is we can't hear each other anymore because all we're doing is yelling at each other. It's
going to extremes.
It's like the parent who always yells at their kids for everything. That pretty soon the kids can't hear the parent anymore because it just sounds normal. That's the way they always talk.
And it's so much anxiety that we're putting amongst each other.
And I'm so tired of the news these days. I'm especially in the last couple of months. I mean, who do you trust? I don't know who to trust anymore. Everything is so negative. Everything's a personal attack. You watch the news and you just want to fight somebody or cry,
or throw up.
It's so depressing. I mean, it's black, it's dark. And
this story, they just went with the darkest angle they could find, and the mayor went right there immediately without giving you the whole picture.
And maybe what they did was the right thing to do.
Maybe
we can't really tell because the way these stories are written. All I know is that the story went viral. That's why I found out about it. And when these kinds of things happen, sometimes the truth isn't actually inside of these stories.
When it goes viral, everything just gets amped up.
God, I'm just tired of everything being a knee-jerk reaction, and it's just we've got to hate that group or hate this group.
You're right. And I have faith that in Hudson hasn't changed since you were there. It's a beautiful upper middle class community. And
yeah.
I think that there is some pretty quality people in that school system.
I have to say, growing up in Hudson, it seemed like people were very reasonable and level-headed. It did seem a very accepting kind of town. You had your elements, of course, just like
Every
any
place,
other town, but it's a well-kept town, and people seem to care about each other back then. Hopefully it's the same now. So, if this is a problem that's happening in Hudson, Ohio right now, if it is anything like it was when I was there, I'm confident that they'll be able to come up with solutions.
Absolutely. Me too. Okay. So that's really a story about being overly vigilant, a little knee jerk, way too knee jerk of a reaction. I got another one to throw at you that's really just the opposite. Not pursuing justice, cover-ups, all of that. See what you know about. Crystal and Sagar did a really great piece on the devastating testimony given by USA gymnasts Michaela Maroney and Simone Biles. This was heart-wrenching. And they shared the recordings. I got a link to this as well, to their YouTube video on it. So it's about the cover-up of Larry Nassar's predatory abuse. And he was the Olympic gym coach. As you recall, I mean, you know the story, right?
I do, yes.
So he's accused, this Larry Nassar has been accused of pedophilia for since at least 2015. That's when Michaela Maroney first told the FBI about it. So they were told by several girls about this, and they covered it up and did nothing about it until very recently. So the whole story is about the precarious situation that the FBI is in. And they're talking about, well, okay, the director finally just resigned like yesterday. And they're like, resign? People need to be put up on charges here. The FBI, in my opinion, at this point needs to be dismantled. First of all, we got the CIA, we got the NSA, who God only knows what other, but the FBI also was just found out to be instigating that kidnapping of the governor, is it Michigan?
Oh, yeah, I'd heard rumors about that. Yeah, Governor Michigan.
So
Gretchen
she was,
Whitmer.
yes. So she was about to be kidnapped. They foiled the kidnapping. So the FBI has been accused of this kind of regularly for a little while now. So they kind of befriend, it's total entrapment. They befriend some fringe, lonely idiots online, and like a QAnon kind of thing. Oh, let's do this, let's do that. And I got the means, I got the money, I got the guns, I got this. And so they create the thing and then they come in and thwart it, even though 16 of the 20 people happen to be FBI agents. So anyways, the FBI is just really crooked. And the depth that things have gone here with the USA gymnasts, the pedophilia going on there and the cover up, because a lot of people are making a lot of money. Oh, the FBI agent in question, he was trying to get a job on the Olympic Committee after he retired from the FBI. So that was a major piece of that puzzle. But there is also a lot of people that are coaching these gymnasts that are making, that's their career. And they don't want to, and they're making jack off on the back of these girls. So they don't want to disrupt things. Like I said, I'm going to leave the link in the show notes. I really suggest that you check it out because they do a heck of a job uncovering all of the gross details, inappropriateness of this whole thing.
Boy, it's really a sad thing to see, especially because the U.S. women's gymnastics team has been so successful over the years. Like we've had some really great stars. Most of those women that were doing the testimony, I recognized. I'm fans of them because they're just super talented. And to find out that behind the scenes they were dealing with this god awful situation, that soul wrenching types of crisis that they were dealing with, and still able to perform at top levels like that. There's no words to describe how they.
As you recall, Simone Biles couldn't perform at the point, and think about the anxiety and God, that's a not a strong enough word at all, but the mental instability that gives you on a daily basis. And to know, Crystal said this, they said a lot very eloquently, but she said, now these girls, how are they ever going to trust again? All the people that were supposed to protect them, that they were entrusted to, their parents entrusted them to, all were covering up this absolutely horrible pedophilia. And I think it's disgusting. And I'll also say they had the recording of Kayla Maroney's testimony there in court. And wow, is she impressive. I strongly suggest you go check out the link and listen to that. It's powerful. And it's disgusting. Just it'll make you so angry.
Yeah. And to the fact that was going on for so long, and I had heard that the FBI had really dismissed a lot of what the girls had. They were girls at the time. What they were saying and everything. And boy, to your point, and what they were saying in Crystal and Sagar is, how are these girls going to trust? But I think it goes even bigger than that, because the FBI is there to protect us, and this is. I've really been thinking a lot about, as we've been watching the news and the events that have been happening, where is America and our protection? Are there protections? It seems like those protections with defund the police, especially out here, I mean, those protections seem to be ebbing away here. And that's a pretty serious thing to take a look at. I do have a pretty encouraging thing here in the news that I saw. I thought it was interesting. I was trying to find something good in the news, because everything has been so horrible lately.
Horrible.
That
the reporting on it is horrible. I mean, the angle that they come from, it's just clickbait. Everything's clickbait.
I actually went to, I just went to good news, and I just Googled that. And,
yes, I've done that for a long time now.
Goodnewsnetwork.org, and they had this this article out here that I thought was encouraging. I don't know if I agree with everything here, but I love the heart of these people. It's locals are interrupting violence, that's in quotes, in Minneapolis, one lawn chair at a time. So these people are in the hottest areas of violence in the Minneapolis area, where there have been a lot of deaths. And what they're doing, I'm looking at a picture here, is the residents of the community have picked the most violent areas, and what they're doing is they're sitting there in lawn chairs. And what they're saying is this is, and then by the way, statistically, they're showing that in these areas, crime is significantly down. And so you've got parents,
grassroots movement. Huh?
You got parents out there. You've got school teachers. You've got congregation members. And what they're saying is, we know these people. These are our kids. These are people we know from the neighborhood. So we go to these areas, and they're being trained on how to de-escalate situations. And and they can talk to these people, and they know them, right? Like, hey, that's Miss Jones right down the street.
Wow.
And it's working. And
this is encouraging.
this in other places as well. In the midst of Minneapolis and the whole defund the police, and that's all in the news right now as well, with Ilhan Omar being all mad about this whole thing. But the people, this is what needs to happen: is people need to take their neighborhoods back. And I mean, my neighborhood in particular is like that. It was a great neighborhood. Now, when the sun goes down, who knows what's going to happen?
Wow.
And I am encouraged, Barry, to see things like this, and see that people are finally seeming to wake up and take back what's been lost.
I am too, Merle. I'm glad that you shared that. But that reminds me of what it was like when I was a kid. Like, there would be neighborhoods that, some people would put a sign in their window that it was kind of a standard sign. This is a safe place. If you ever feel unsafe, you can just try barging in here and knock. What I liked about what you said is that they get training on how to de-escalate. That's so important, because if you go and just try to confront the situation, these, rebellious kids with no father figures or whatever. Oh, that could get ugly. That could get
It
very
could.
ugly.
And these people realize that they're putting themselves in harm's way by doing this. Because even with training, anything could happen, right? I mean,
Yeah,
these
for
are the
sure.
violent streets, but what their advantage is that they actually know these people.
Yeah.
They're their neighbors, and as you said, it's like when you were a kid. I remember that I could get in trouble by any mother at any one of these houses down my street, right? Like
Yeah,
they see me
right.
doing something wrong, they're gonna go tell my mom.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and not only that, they're gonna come out and yell at me too.
Yeah.
That
Well,
doesn't happen anymore.
and do you remember seeing on occasion, like riding your bike into a neighborhood and there'd be a sign that says neighborhood watch?
Yes.
That's the kind of stuff that we need to get back to.
Yeah.
Boy, that is encouraging. I like that news.
I do too. It is encouraging. I hope that there's more stuff like that as well. I see, and we're talking about the news, a lot of bad news out there right now. But
It's horrible.
I was just thinking, just this week, because gosh, the news has been really depressing me. And I've been watching this whole thing. Biden made this mandate last week regarding vaccinations, and it's going to impact about 80 million people here. And a lot of people are losing their jobs. I mean, this is left and right. This is a big, big deal right now, especially in healthcare. And of course, I'm in healthcare. I started thinking about maybe I should start to look at this as an opportunity, because when stuff like this happens, and this is a big, big deal, by the way, we've never seen anything like this in America. There's going to be a lot of people, and I'm just thinking about healthcare. There's a lot of nurses, a lot of doctors that are going to find themselves out of a job, and this is happening. But I also believe that these are people, for the most part, that are trying to think outside the box and think about themselves and think about their health, and they're very analytical. I'm not saying that the people that have made another decision aren't, but for the most part, these people have had to make a decision that impacts their entire life and their livelihood and everything, and they're taking something very seriously here. And as I started thinking about the fact that, well, there's a healthcare crisis out there. There's not enough people in healthcare right now. It's a big problem. And how healthcare is actually moving towards home health and out of the hospital. And a lot of these people, I'm thinking maybe there's an opportunity for somebody to come in and start an organization of doctors and nurses that can do home health care. And maybe there's a test. If they're not willing to get vaccinated right now, maybe there's a testing regimen, or even add to that a policy like the old days of a year and a half ago, where if you're sick, stay home. You know what I mean?
Right.
And because we're hearing doctors out there that are actually saying that they won't treat unvaccinated people.
I've heard that.
It seems like there's a new market out there for people that fit into this category, and there's probably an opportunity here, because people can't go without healthcare. We need that. And so maybe in the midst of this darkness, there's a ray of hope and a ray of light here.
Well, I hope you're right, because we all know that our healthcare system is completely broken, and the greed has taken it over completely. So some things do need to change. I like your idea. First of all, I want to say, though, that as far as that mandate goes, it's either get the vaccine or get tested each week. So there's an option there. So
there is. I had a story about that, because it's interesting. Here's what we're seeing is, much like everything else that happens in government, there's just not a lot of planning that goes behind their grandiose ideas. And this idea is OSHA would be the organization that would enforce this whole mandate. And you're right. I mean, it's either or. If you're not willing to be vaccinated, then the testing has to happen. But there's some challenges here, and this thing is in trouble, by the way, this whole thing. So let me just go through this. The first thing is that the organization is reeling from deep staffing cuts. They have under the Trump administration, Trump gutted OSHA. There's about half of the people that were there before Trump left office. So they just don't have the resources. In fact, if you start to look at it, it's like for every OSHA employee, there's like 6 million people that are working. They at this point, they just don't have the manpower to do what the president's asking. Secondly, is that OSHA plans to establish this emergency temporary standard. We should see that today, as a matter of fact, to enact the new requirements the White House said on last Friday. That measure, which is used to accelerate urgent rules, has only been used 10 times in OSHA's 50-year history, and the courts have invalidated or halted 4 of these rules and partially blocked 1, according to the Congressional Research Service. Here's the other thing about this is that with OSHA, when they enact fines on companies, a lot of times these get held up in courts for 2, 3, 4 years, and employers are willing to pay exponentially more to work it through the courts than they are to pay the fines. So inherently in this bureaucratic method, it's just slow and not very effective when you need to do something quickly. And then finally, number 3 is it's millions of dollars a year to any size company to do the testing that they're asking. This is what an attorney told Politico recently. Millions of dollars for a company the size of 100 employees will actually ruin that company unless you pass those millions of dollars to the employee, which will break the employee. So, man, they're in a real dilemma about how to enforce this. And I just really believe there's so many much easier ways to get through this. And unfortunately, it seems to, this is really the unfortunate part, is that these mandates are very political in nature. And they seem to bypass the medical facts of science. And that's the part I hope. It just seems like our government is shooting themselves in the foot as far as trust goes when it comes to
I was just going to say exactly that, is that they've depleted the trust that we have in them completely, especially Fauci's walking joke that they won't take off the air. And he's largely responsible for a lot of mistrust, especially when we see on video him lying to Congress about the whole gain of function funding. And not only that, here's another thing. Like now they're talking about, the vaccines are only good for about 6 or 7 months. You're going to need a booster. And this isn't what you told us before. And it's not even what studies are showing. Studies are showing that these vaccines work a lot better than you sometimes say. I mean, because they go back and forth all the time. What most people have come to realize is that, and again, the whole thing, the politicization behind certain drugs that are found to be effective as well in treating or acting as a prophylactic to protect against COVID, preventative medicine is demonized. And it's a total political thing. Dude, it's because of the lobbyists in Washington and the pharmaceutical industry that are getting trillions of dollars to create these vaccines and boosters and have the whole world dependent on it. Trillions of dollars out there. They're not going to turn this stuff over to a cheap drug that's a generic and they make nothing off of. That's clearly a huge motivation in all of this.
It really is, and it's so interesting what's happening right now with all of these things that we keep talking about misinformation, or at least we're hearing that on television, and we have to eliminate this misinformation. We hear our president's administration talking about getting rid of misinformation, yet the very people that keep talking about it seem to be the ones that are spreading all the misinformation.
Yes.
Because we've heard just flip-flop back and forth every couple months. It's a whole different thing, and no wonder people are hesitant about putting something into their body that they're hearing 10 different stories, and all of them conflict from the same
All of
person.
them. Yes.
And so this week we have this rapper Nicki Minaj.
Oh, right.
Seeing this out there. Now I'm not a fan of Nicki Minaj.
I don't either. I wouldn't recognize anything that she said. I found this to be a funny story, but I might have heard from a different angle than you. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, it's an interesting thing because, she would definitely not be a person you would think of as a conservative. She's definitely not. But here she is saying, this is really what she's saying, is that I need to do my research. I'm just not ready to do this yet, and I'm feeling like this isn't. I think people need to slow down, and they need to think about it, and they need to pray about it. And that started to become a big deal. And then she talked about her cousin in Trinidad that had this. He had a strange reaction to the whole thing, but this started this whole firestorm of her being like a vaccination denier or whatever,
anti-vaxxer.
Anti-vaxxer.
Now we have that word in our vocabulary,
which I hate that word, especially when people say vax, because they always make an ugly face when they say vax. It seems so bad, anti-vaxxer. It's right up there with you're a bigot, you're a misogynist. Now you're an anti-vaxxer.
Right.
We just keep coming up with these names, but here's what she said: just pray on it. Make sure you're comfortable with your decision, not bullied. Well, boy, people went crazy because Tucker Carlson from Fox News spoke on it and said that, hey, it's her right. She's not saying to people don't take the vaccination. She's saying think about it and make your own choice. Well, man. People lost their minds. Basically, they're saying that she's lined up with white supremacists now.
Oh my God! Okay, I didn't. That figures. I heard the angle though coming from her cousin's friend in Trinidad. With Trinidad, first, they don't use any of our vaccines. I forget the name of the one that they use, but it's a really crappy one. And the guy and the officials in Trinidad, I think the president himself is who I heard speak about this and said, we take every allegation seriously and we have done an investigation. There's absolutely no evidence of, I believe the guy claimed his testicles swelled up or something.
Right,
something sexual. Dude, it's pretty clear. And his girlfriend or wife left him right after that. Pretty clear. He got caught cheating, and he tried to pin it on getting vaccinated. He got an STD. That's what happened.
Okay, all right. Well, that is kind of a funny story.
But that ties right into this is how it started. And to your point, it got viral, and everybody got incensed, and it went nuts. Everybody went nuts.
Yeah, and then it's pick a side every time.
Yep, there you go.
Got to pick a side now, and here, I also think it's interesting because when you take a look at the population here in the United States, it's mostly the Black population that has been the slowest. Not mostly, it's the Black population that's been the slowest to adopt the vaccination, and it has everything to do with the history of this country,
of course.
And so here is a Black woman who's very prominent in her business and rap music. Everybody knows her, and so she starts saying something that could be construed to somebody else as a threat to their
she's turning on her people.
Yeah, well, and so immediately Joy Reid from MSNBC, who is also Black, she's the first person to attack.
Yeah,
and so this is an interesting thing that's happening in the Black community here. I think that it's ugly too, because Nicki Minaj actually said of Joy Reid that she was a Uncle Thomasette or something like that.
She brought up something about a tweet that Joy Reid. I never read anything good about that person.
Never.
Nicki Minaj brought up a tweet. I believe it was a homophobic slur kind of thing that she took down. So
yeah, she did. But she also, Joy Reid was also saying the exact same thing that Nicki Minaj is saying only a few months ago. And that's recorded as well. So here's what it looks like is a political assassination of her, and her point is they had to use a black woman in order to do it so that it wouldn't look like it was white people that were just trying to bring her down. Whatever the cause is, I don't know if that's the case or not. This is ugly, man. And this kind of thing shouldn't have anything to do with our health care. It's complete here. Well, look at what's happened here. This is ugly.
Look at this is how strange it is. How people are always trying to fit everything into these little boxes so that they can choose which box to fight for. And so, yes, the Black population is the predominant culture that has a problem with the vaccines, that have hesitancy and doubt. And I think that's understandable. Yet at the same time, remember, we can never hold two truths at the same time. It has to be one or the other, and you pick.
But pick a side, man.
Yeah. At the same time, the Black people are supposed to be firmly in the Democratic camp and against anti-vaxxers.
See, that's a
conundrum, huh?
Here's another weird thing about vaccinations is that before this, anti-vaccination was really a thing of the left, not of the conservative.
You're right. You're right.
So like, oh, I'm not doing that. You know what they put inside of that? I would always be like, are you kidding me? Come on, man. Right. Everybody. And it's so funny how everything changed so suddenly, you know, it's like, it's in just this term anti-vaxxer. I just think it's such a misnomer, because most people that they're terming anti-vaxxer are people that have had like 20 vaccinations already.
Yeah, that's true. That's
so it's true. Just not. It's just we change the way that words are all the time, and you know, back to the whole criticism of journalism again. It is a dead art, man. I you know, we're starting to run out of time here, and I just wanted to at least acknowledge the California governor race out here this week. Newsom's in. He got about 60% of the vote on the recall, so he's not getting recalled. Interestingly, Larry Elder did exponentially lead the pack as far as any who would have stepped in there. It would have been Larry Elder, but Gavin Newsom was able to avoid the recall. Now that that's happened, what we're seeing is that he's saying, and many in his party out here are saying, that is a referendum. I think that's how you say it, referendum on
there you go.
The COVID policies of Gavin Newsom, and that these policies will be ramping up very quickly. And what we're going to see here in Los Angeles, and this is looking like it's going to start next month in Los Angeles County, is that you will need to have your vaccination passport in order to go to any real venues here, going out to eat, going to bars and restaurants, those kinds of things. You're not going to be able to really participate in society at large.
You got to get out of there.
Don't have that.
Yeah.
This is one of those things, is that I heard a guy in the news say this, is he said that the people that do the electing always deserve who they elected. And
look at New York. Yeah.
If you take a look at this state, we've got rising crime, rising homelessness, the highest poverty rate in the nation. Businesses are fleeing this country like it's a sieve. The kids, they I don't know, are they in school? Are they not going to school? So it couldn't be any worse here. I guess it could be worse, but I mean, this is a sinking ship, right? And
You
the
would think.
people have chosen to keep the sinking ship sinking. Is what it feels like.
It sounds crazy, doesn't it? But Californians are a heck of a lot like Canadians. And that journalist that was on Rogan a couple of weeks ago, I told you about how she was born and raised in Vancouver and got the heck out of there because of Trudeau and just the way that things go there. She said, people there want to be told what to do. And they, they're just fall in line with whatever they're told, and that's just the way they like it. They don't like thinking for themselves. In California, that's the same thing. Is that safety to them? Is that
I agree.
If your government is telling you what to do and where to go and where not to go, then you feel safe with that. And I don't understand that at all, but that just is the way it is.
Barry, I love what you're saying. I actually don't love what you're saying, but
I know.
I love it because I thought so much about this. It seems that the real war is on those people that would prefer to think for themselves and use their own critical thinking to determine what's real and what's not, what's truth and what's a lie, what's black, what's white. It seems like those are the people that our society now at large is really like, that's not a good thing for our country.
No, it's not. We're producing that right there in grade school.
Everybody needs to be exactly. It's starting in grade school. People need to be a drone and take orders and not think for themselves. Interestingly, Barry, I brought up that Kent State book a bunch of times. I finished it.
Sure.
They talked about back then in the 70s, a lot of these activists, I may have brought this up before, had determined through that whole thing that really two things. One was the crowd during the shooting was mostly underclassmen. There were very few upperclassmen that were there. The riot that happened a few days before was about 50% minors. What they decided was, in order to really radicalize people, they needed to get to them before they got to the college campus. So a lot of these activists went into teaching as a result in high school and junior high.
Yeah.
And so we're seeing the difference today in our education system. It's exactly what those people at that time were envisioning.
Yeah. I think I told you I had this conversation with my mom telling her about critical race theory. She never heard of it. And it's hard to believe, like telling her that they're teaching this stuff about dividing people up into races and history revisionist stuff. She couldn't believe it. And I got to tell you, as it's coming out of my mouth, it is hard to tell someone that hasn't heard about this. It sounds like I'm a conspiracy theorist because it sounds so ridiculous.
It does sound ridiculous.
Yeah.
And it's
crazy.
Like, wait a second. I thought we were on the side of anti-racism,
right?
And yet this actually makes people so ultra aware of their race and their grievances towards really the white population. So if you're white, you're just getting all kinds of condemnation as you're bad, you're inherently bad, your parents are bad, your grandparents were bad, and you have to make an amends for something that you are completely not responsible for. And then if you're a person of color, then you've been screwed over in life. Everybody hates
by that guy.
Everything's against you, and it's because of these people in your class. Exactly. Right. So how are you gonna? Hey, after class, hey, you want to come over to my house?
Right.
Bigot. What a terrible thing to do.
I think it was last week we talked about the story that, oh my God, white males are dropping out of college, opting not to go to college at a historic rate. It's 60% female now.
Well, I mean, with the lessons that are being taught, but gosh, they're hated. A few other things that are in the news. Did you see this whole thing about General Milley and how he was warning the Chinese top general in the secret back channel? What do you think about that? Is that treason?
I didn't read the details of it, but it's okay. I just looked at it like I just read the headlines, bulleted points and stuff. So he he's accused, not accused. It's true that so he called
It's in a book.
his peer in China to say, "Don't worry, we're not going to do anything with nukes or something." I just don't see. I guess there's a technicality legally about what. And look, I'm no fan of Millie. In fact, I can't stand the guy, but I don't understand what was so wrong about trying to make sure that somebody doesn't pull a trigger.
Yeah, I personally, when it comes to declaring war or if you're going to attack or whatever, that's really the commander in chief's call on that. Calling somebody without authorization to say this isn't going to have, there's not going to be an attack, and if there were going to be an attack, this is what he said, I would call you. I think that's what I'm going to read you the quote that's in the book. Sure. The book was written by, what's the guy's name, the chief editor over at the Washington Post, the guy that Woodward. Anyway, General, here's the quote: General Lee, you and I have known each other for 5 years now. If I were going to attack, I'm going to call you ahead of time. It's not going to be a surprise. So what general would call his enemy if he was going to attack? It would be an enemy and say, I'm going to attack you now. I mean, that seems
odd. But as all of the news goes, again, I don't like Millie at all. He's bringing CRT and wokeism into our military, and I think that he should be investigated for that. For this, I think it's more hysteria in the media.
I don't know what's going to happen with this one. I do think that the story gets a little thicker when you hear Jen Psaki come in and start talking about the mental stability of the former president, and that would be the reason why he did that. But what's the protocol on that? Do we have generals that make a mental assessment of the president and then decide to make moves with potential enemies? It just seems out of order to me. It is. At the least, it's out of order.
Agreed.
And then finally, I have a whole bunch of them. But did you see where AOC showed up at the Met Gala with the?
I'm glad you brought that up because I forgot about that. And I just, once again, that's AOC. She doesn't realize how the elites are sucking her in and using her, and she's becoming them. Now, that was Charlie. He cried. But she had to put that on her dress. Otherwise, she looks like a total sellout. So expect more of this behavior from her in the future.
The problem for her right now is that she's facing an ethics complaint over this whole thing because the Met Gala appearance was $35,000,
and that was donated to her. Her ticket was donated.
And so in the Constitution, these kinds of things can only fall under a couple of different headings, and apparently neither one of those headings actually works. So we're going to hear more about this. But besides that, how hypocritical! Tax the rich, and you're paying $35,000 a ticket to go to this whole thing. I think it's kind of funny. And at the same time, that Met Gala event was exactly what spurred on the whole Nicki Minaj thing, because the comments started with her saying, I'm not going to this. They're requiring a vaccination and I haven't been vaccinated. And this is all like a political, whatever she said. That's how there's an interesting event going on over there.
There's more to that in this sense. Did you hear about AOC's new show on CNN being AOC? Talk about total
show
on CNN, and the fact that CNN,
that's crazy,
that they would do a show and she would agree to a title called Being AOC. That is so narcissistic. First of all, they are manipulating. They love her. I mean, they're manipulating the crap out of her. She's going to be a multimillionaire by next year.
Yeah. Wow. It's depressing.
The hypocriticalness of this, all of this is just disgusting.
Here's one last thing. I thought I was going to do the last thing, but it is interesting to see. This just happened. A couple of GOP senators or representatives, Steve Scalise and James Comer, they They're asking the Food and Drug Administration for documents that might relate to the GOP suspicions that Biden has politicized the process of administering vaccines. And this has to do with the boosters. In a letter to the FDA, acting commissioner Janet Woodcock, Scalise and Comer point to the Biden's announcement about the booster shots on September 20th. This was last week that he said this. He said, this shot will boost your immune response, Biden said, as anxiety mounted over the Delta variant. And he said, it'll increase your protection from COVID-19, and it's the best way to protect ourselves from the new variant that could arise. But within moments, a number of experts began to wonder whether Biden had jumped the gun. Indeed, he had. In fact, the president made the announcement before the vaccine makers had even submitted the needed data to the FDA. And that led to turmoil inside the agency, where, according to an August 31st report in Political, officials, quote, scrambled to collect and analyze data that clearly demonstrate the boosters' benefit before the administration's September 20th deadline for rolling them out to most adults. So this is where the problem of adding politics to this is causing such a big deal for people like Nicki Minaj and others, because what I'm reading here is that the president said this, and it was the tail wagging the dog. The FDA is supposed to be independent. They're supposed to research these things and come out. They can't be influenced by science isn't supposed to be influenced by politics. And so when you start to see this kind of thing happening, we saw it with the FDA approval of the Pfizer drug as well, or vaccination, because here the FDA was saying it wasn't going to be approved until December or January. Biden makes a speech and says it's going to be ready in September. Afghanistan happens, and lo and behold, we actually have it early in August. And so there's suspicion around these bureaucracies and the independence of the bureaucracy. And are they being controlled by the administration? I think there's going to be more on this, but we'll have to see.
Okay. I think that we should just lighten this up at this point. Okay. And I got something I promised you last week, and it's my patio.
Oh, you got it. Cool. I love it.
Yeah. So this brick patio with these planters that I designed and built myself, the whole thing I did with my own two hands, but I did that a long time ago. And the privacy fence that you see here, I put that up just a few years ago, and that's little Charlie back there. Let's give you a couple of views. Good. Yeah, I got obviously a lot of garbage around because I've been doing a lot of projects. And the project I was doing about a week ago was laying all this brick in on the side. I was trying to decide what to do with this previously weed infested pile of dirt, a strip of dirt along there. If you look at the top of this is kind of funny. The top of this planter. Now, a week ago, both of these planters had big, bushy, leafy perennials in there.
I wonder what happened to
him. That little monster. He jumped up in there and dug both of them out completely. And on this other side, in fact, some bricks went down as well. So he's just adding more projects to me. So you could see these strips that I put on top.
I see that, yes.
Those are those wooden things that you put on the floor before you lay down carpeting. So they have those little tiny nails coming up in there. I hate to sound cruel, but so now he jumps up there. I've seen a couple of these moved. So he has jumped up on there, and that's the deterrent. So he gets a little prick in his paws there. He can be a monster, but well, sure do love the little guy.
You know what my mom did with her dog Pepper a long time ago is she learned to put mouse traps up into those kinds of areas. And so
that's a little.
Here's the thing: is you set it right, and the first time that thing goes off, you never have to set those traps again.
That's funny.
It never gets them.
That's right, but that snapping would scare them. That's really brilliant.
That's right.
Actually.
But
if it did get their paw, could be.
Yeah, I don't know if it never happened to Pepper. But the funny part is that she had these unset mouse traps and like all of her plants and stuff.
That's a really
over there.
That's a good idea. I gotta keep that in my back pocket because there's been a lot of things with him. It's like, how do I get him to stop doing this?
Yep. That worked for my mom. Of course, Pepper was a smaller dog than Charlie. So, but the cool thing was after the first time, she didn't have to set them anymore. She would just put them in places, and Pepper was I'm not doing that again.
That's genius. I'm going to consider that because
Pepper was really smart, like Charlie. So I think that something like that would work for. He would remember that.
I love that. So apparently, we are not going to do an after show this week, correct?
No, we're not going to be able to. I got a meeting coming up here, and I gotta actually dress up for this one. Okay, great. And we went actually a little long. I didn't think we would get an hour in today, but it was a great conversation. And absolutely. I wish the first part of it didn't get technologically deleted, but oh well. It was fun. It lasted.
It was fun. It's a beautiful day out there. I can't wait to get started on some things. So anyways, Merle, I hope that you have a great weekend. And guys, go to over50startingover.com, sign up for our email list, because that way you'll get the links to all these important things dropped in your email box as they happen. All right, bud. Yeah. See you next week. Love you, bud. All right. Bye.